If I put a bowl of white rice and a baked potato in front of you and told you that one of them spikes blood sugar more, which would you pick? Before I tell you the answer, let me know your guess in the comments below. Most people say rice. They assume potatoes are healthier because they're a whole food, or they assume rice is worse because it's refined and carb dense. But the real answer is more nuanced than that. And if you care about reversing insulin resistance, bringing your fasting blood sugar down, just balancing your blood sugar in general, that nuance matters. So let's settle it properly. Rice versus potato. Which one spikes blood sugar more? Short answer, it depends. Long answer, you need to understand three things: the structure of the starch, how it's cooked, and what you eat with it. Let's start with the basics. Both rice and potatoes are primarily starch. Starch is made up of glucose molecules linked together. When you eat starch, your digestive enzymes break it down into glucose, which enters your bloodstream and raises blood sugar. When blood sugar rises, insulin rises. And if your insulin is raising sharply and frequently, over time, this is what contributes to insulin resistance. Now here's where things get interesting. Not all starch is the same. There are two main types of starch we're going to be talking about today. White rice, especially short grain varieties, is higher in a type of starch that's digested more rapidly. This means there's going to be a bigger blood sugar spike. Potatoes also contain the starch that's digested rapidly, especially when they're eaten hot and freshly cooked. But they also contain more of a different type of starch than rice does, and that starch has resistant starch potential. Now, when we think of insulin resistance, there's obviously a negative connotation there, and yes, insulin resistance, not a good thing. But resistant starch is completely different. It's actually beneficial. Resistant starch is starch that resists digestion in the small intestine. Instead of being rapidly converted into glucose, it passes into the large intestine and acts more like fiber. When potatoes are cooked and then cooled, some of the starch turns into resistant starch. So a hot baked potato has a completely different blood sugar response than a potato that's been cooked and cooled in the fridge. That is the first nuance. Now let's talk about glycemic index. The glycemic index measures how quickly a food raises blood sugar compared to pure glucose. White rice can have a glycemic index anywhere from moderate to high, depending on the type. Jasmine rice is typically higher. Basmati rice tends to be lower. Potatoes can also have a high glycemic index score, especially when mashed or baked and eaten hot. So if we're looking at glycemic index alone, then yes, both can spike blood sugar. But glycemic index is only measured in isolation. Most people are not eating rice alone in a lab. They're not eating potatoes alone in a lab. You eat meals, and what you eat with these foods changes everything. And I talked about this a lot in episode 2 of my insulin resistance playbook series. And that's the importance of eating protein first and carbs last. If you eat rice on its own, your blood sugar will spike quickly, insulin will surge, and you may feel hungry again soon afterwards. If you eat the same rice after eating a steak and vegetables cooked in olive oil, the glucose absorption is slower. Insulin rises more gradually. Satiety hormones increase. The same is true for potatoes. A plain baked potato with nothing else, yeah, that's gonna spike glucose rapidly. But the same potato eaten with salmon, butter, and a side salad behaves differently. The problem is not the rice or the potatoes. The problem is isolated starch. Another consideration, which might seem obvious, is portion size. Rice, it's pretty easy to overeat. It's small, dense, and easy to consume in large amounts quickly. A typical restaurant serving of rice can easily be 2 or 3 cups. That is a very large glucose load. A potato is physically bulky. It takes up space. It's harder to overconsume without noticing fullness. So for many people, rice actually spikes blood sugar more because they're eating more of it. And even though this is behavioral and not biochemical, it's still something to consider. Now let's talk about satiety. Potatoes consistently rank high on the satiety index. In studies comparing fullness from different foods, boiled potatoes are among the most filling carbohydrate source. Rice tends to be less filling per calorie. If food leaves you hungry, you're more likely to eat again sooner. And that repeated insulin stimulation matters more than the initial spike. So from a satiety standpoint, potatoes actually win here. But now let's talk about insulin resistance specifically. When someone is insulin resistant, their cells do not respond efficiently to insulin. So the pancreas produces more insulin to compensate. High glycemic, rapidly digestible carbohydrates can worsen this cycle. For someone with significant insulin resistance, both rice and potatoes might not be the best choice. especially if they're eaten without enough protein or fat. For someone in the early stages of insulin resistance, however, they might be okay, especially when they're combined with enough protein and fat. So the key question here is not which is worse, which spikes blood sugar more, it's how metabolically flexible are you? How good is your body at processing carbohydrates? And how are you eating them? If you cannot go more than 3 hours without feeling shaky or hungry, that's a sign your blood sugar regulation needs work. If you eat rice and you crash 2 hours later, that's feedback. There's also preparation to consider. White rice that's been cooked and cooled also develops some resistant starch. And yes, you can reheat it. The resistant starch stays intact. The same is true for potatoes, so some meal prep can actually significantly change the equation. Potatoes also contain more fiber per serving than white rice. Fiber slows digestion and improves glycemic response. Brown rice contains more fiber than white rice, but it also contains anti-nutrients like phytic acid that may reduce mineral absorption. For that reason, I actually recommend white rice over brown. So the most important thing to remember here is that neither potatoes or rice are inherently evil. The metabolic damage comes from frequent, large, refined carbohydrate loads, combined with low protein intake, low muscle mass, poor sleep, and high stress. You can't isolate one starch and blame it. You can't even isolate one food and blame it. Carbs in the right context are not the enemy. It's when they're refined and processed and eaten in large amounts. Now, if your goal is reversing insulin resistance as fast as possible, then yes, minimizing starch-rich foods can be a very effective approach. But you need to make it sustainable. And you can still include these foods in your diet as long as you eat them in a smart way. If eaten hot, in large portions, and in isolation, both rice and potatoes can spike blood sugar significantly. But if you structure your meals properly, have protein first, carbs last. If you're aware of your portion size, don't eat massive amounts of carbs first thing in the morning. All of this can help you to reduce the amount of insulin that's needed all at once. And if you want to take it one step further, cook and cool your starches beforehand. So, which is worse? The one you overeat, the one you eat alone, the one you eat when you're already metabolically inflexible. For some people that's rice, for some people that's potatoes. And if you want to figure out how these foods and other specific foods impact your blood sugar, impact how much insulin your body is needing, I highly recommend trying out a continuous glucose monitor. This video isn't sponsored, but I've recently been using these ones. I think the brand is called Kait, and these are available in Australia. If you want one that's available in the United States or Canada without a prescription, I will put a link in the description box down below. Each device lasts for 2 weeks and it allows you to see trends in your blood sugar. It allows you to see how not just food, but also stress, poor sleep, and other lifestyle factors impact your blood sugar. And all this data can be extremely valuable for bringing your fasting blood sugar down, balancing your blood sugar, and ultimately reversing insulin resistance. To reverse insulin resistance, you don't need to be obsessing over a certain food. You reverse it by building muscle, eating adequate protein, reducing refined sugar, walking after meals, sleeping consistently, managing your stress. And when your insulin sensitivity improves, your tolerance to carbs improves. Now, in my video coming out Tuesday, we're breaking down the best and the worst foods you can eat for insulin resistance. That video will give you a clear framework, so you're not guessing every time you grocery shop. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss out on that video.